One day a few years ago, while I was lying on my couch, playing with my iPad, I suddenly realized that I had a headache. I figured this headache was because I hadn't slept much that night, but it was still really bothering me. I also wondered if maybe it was because I hurt myself from swimming, which is a completely different story. Later in the evening, I asked my mom, "Mom, do we have any aspirin? My head is killing me." Do you know what she said? She said, "Psh, you have a headache because you're always on your phone." And I was so frustrated, not just because I still had a headache. Why did she assume it was the phone? It really could have been a lot of different things. I went to school and asked some of my friends, "Does this ever happen to you?" Do you know what they said? They said, "Yeah, my parents are always telling me that." So I went on TikTok. To you older people here, TikTok is a popular app that is famously enjoyed by the younger generation. And there were millions of videos showing kids complaining about their parents getting on them for being on their phone too much. Hashtag shut up, mom. The story I just told might seem a little silly, but it reflects to me something seen all throughout our society, wherever you look. Generational division. What is generational division? It might be a little official sounding, but generational division is a term I've come up with not just to talk about the things seen in my story, but also to talk about the division that affects our society. Speaking of phones, the older generation, the people who write the laws and shape our country, grew up in a time when phones were all wired. Back then, each house had just one phone number, and everyone could be on the same call at the same time if they had enough phones. It's true. I watched a show called Young Sheldon. It's on Hulu. You can stream it if you want. Never mind, I'll teach you that later. That's generational differences. We are accomplishing the same thing, but in very different ways. Some of the wired phone users will be baffled by today's smartphones. And people of my generations think that you guys can wrap them in phone cords is pretty funny. Generational differences like these has been a major interest to me as I have looked into the topic, because I believe it is growing even more stark. In 2016, a study showed that almost half of millennials had student loan debt, and compared that to only 30% of baby boomers when they came out of college. That's a massive financial leg up for the older generation. This division is real, and people are suffering because of it. If you look at the sources, it becomes clear that there's a real problem here. And if we don't address generational differences soon, these issues will only get worse. But before we get into this, you might ask, why me? Well, I haven't been in the United States for very long. In fact, I've only got here in August 2020. But I think it will be an understatement to say that I have seen a lot of history before my eyes. On top of that, before the US, I lived in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a city that's often in the middle of conflict stemming from differences from the older generation and the younger generation making their voice heard through protesting. That's not too different from the protests you see in response to politics here. And what stuck out to me when I arrived in America is that no matter where you are in the world, you can still see the same problem happening. One thing that my teachers are always telling me is that if you have a problem, then you have to have a solution. And as much as it pains me to do what my teachers tell me to do, I think they're actually right here. I have thought long and hard about this. And I've come up with not just one, but two solutions to this problem. My teachers will love me. My first solution is generational cultural literacy classes. Before we get into this, have any of you heard of the lake trend before? Please raise your hand. Anyone? I see some younger hands in the crowd. For some older people here, you might think, what is a lake trend? Am I going to leg somebody here? I'm not doing that. Well, you're wrong. That's what I'm talking about. You can learn all these stuff and more in generational cultural literacy classes. In these classes, the older generation will have a chance to better understand current technologies and the things that they might have missed on at first. I'm talking class that goes all the way into the process of learning different apps and other technologies that the younger generation loves, such as Instagram, Snapchat, and Discord, which are all the apps that are used to talk to people, but in very different ways. In a group setting of people their ages, older adults will have tons of fun learning, and at the same time, grow closer to the younger generation that they sometimes have problems with. Not only that, we can also discuss bigger topics, the things that are important to the younger generation. Did you know that the cost of college has skyrocketed, tripling over 35 years? That's right. The cost of public college has risen $6,085 over a period of 35 years. Did you know that the relative value of a minimum wage job has decreased by 17% in the last 12 years? What about diversity and inclusion? Gender issues? Issues about love and marriage? How does it affect us? And how does that shape our willingness to follow the vision that your generation has set? In generational cultural literacy classes, we can discuss these problems and learn from each other. Additionally, there are health benefits to this kind of learning. A recent Harvard study showed that learning new skills slows down the brain's aging in older adults. And according to Dr. Ibs Vahia, the brain is like any other muscle. Challenging it by learning new skills is proven to make the brain healthier and improve overall health. Teaching is the most effective way to solve many of the problems facing our country. But the hard part is getting people to listen. People tend to be set in their ways and often are willing to broaden their horizons. So if an idea like this were enacted, we would need to ensure that the older generation participates. To achieve that, we will need incentives. I propose a cash incentive of something like $50 to $100 per lesson, provided by a government program dedicated to this idea. Maybe if that doesn't work, we can give them some free discount coupons at bingo night. I can't think of anything better for any generation than to discuss these important topics and improve health at the same time. But my idea of solving generational division don't just stop at older adults. If we want the problem to be truly solved, the youth has to be involved too. The other day I was watching a YouTube video from a woman who went to Stanford. She talked about community service and how, instead of joining an existing organization, you should start your own community service organization. This way, she argued, you look that much better to potential colleges. She went on to say that if you want to make your members stay, give everyone an officer position, so they will look better at their college applications and will be more likely to stay. I kind of agree with her points at first, but the more I thought about it, the more lost I felt. Isn't doing something like this just to get into good colleges beside the point of engaging in your community? Right now, kids volunteer and do community service because they want to make themselves look better in their college applications, not to actually make a change and serve their community. And this all isn't just something I'm making up. Here's the data to back me up. In 2012, a study found that 54% of people ages 13 to 22 reported volunteering the previous year. The next year, though, participation. A Harvard study found that 34% of people ages 18 to 29 reported of doing community service. So basically, it is common for people to start volunteering and do community service when they doesn't benefit them anymore. When it comes to generational division, I had a similar experience from the other side. I am currently an advisory board member at the Newton, Massachusetts Youth Commission. And the purpose for this commission is to help the youth like me to engage in our community. But even though working so hard on this, it seems like that some of the people in my community don't care and appreciate our efforts just because we're young. It's almost like they're thinking, oh, how cute, little kids are trying to be involved, and they never listen to what we have to say. But what they're ignoring is that the youth are 100% of our future. So if you want the future to be bright, start off by listening to the youth like me. Sometimes it seems like that personal pride matters more than how they can benefit their community. And we need to change this self-focused mindset. While the idea of getting the youth engaged in their community is nice to think about, the how is always hard to pull off. But I believe a surefire way to get the youth engaged in their community is by reaching them at a place that they're sure to be at, school. If schools have classes and programs that taught the importance of engaging in their communities, the exposure will be a bridge in the gaps between generations. Younger people who engage in their community will be able to meet and talk with those people who have been doing the same thing for way longer. And both of them will get a better understanding of each other's life experiences. Actual changes matters more than personal pride of participation, and we need that change. Most of the politicians these days are old. Very old. Very, very, very mature. The average age of people in the House is 58 years old. In the Senate, it's 63. And no matter who won each of the last two presidential elections, the winner is always going to be the oldest president ever elected in the US history. When some of these people were my age, Eisenhower was the president, and all they had was rotary phones. The younger voices are missing, and the best way to get them back is by getting them engaged. Community engagements will help them form bonds with some older folks in their community and engage with them in ways that weren't able to before. And hey, maybe someday when the youth grow up and becomes the one who's running the show by themselves, they will have a better understanding of what it means to connect with the younger generation. We cannot mandate this by law. It has to be a cultural change. As what Fred Jones said in his TEDxEustis talk in 2019, the use of voice, not force, elicits a deeper change. If you want a real change to be made, sometimes you can't just rush it. You need to ensure that a deeper connection is made. That was the goal for generational cultural literacy classes, and that's the goal for this. What we want isn't just a quick, instant change. The goal here is to accomplish something with long-lasting effect, just like Rome wasn't built in a day. And generational division won't be solved in one either. There's a lot of divisions in our country. You feel it, I feel it, we all feel it. And we need to do something to change its course. The idea of generational cultural literacy classes is a good start. There, people in different generations can come together and learn from each other and grow. Getting youth engaged in their community is a great way to form long-term bonds between generations. And we can all make this change right now by working together to overcome our differences. And also make sure that youth are ready and prepared to take over the world and our future. The whole humanity's future. What do you think? Are you with me? Let's see. Yeah, come on. Also, some older folks do this in their TEDx talk. Well, I thought it would be fun. All right, thank you.